So, welcome to the Maxroll Vessel of Hatred podcast. Now, after we played around with the new expansion, with the new stuff for a little bit, I wanted to get the boys together and talk about a few different topics. We're going to go into the general gameplay flow, the torment difficulty scaling, item progression in general, and also a little bit of mid-season patch speculations. And then obviously at the very end, we will have time for chat questions. So if you guys have anything that comes up during the discussion, make sure to note it down. And then at the very end, we can discuss that whenever chat brings up super cool stuff. But I wouldn't be able to do this podcast alone. So I brought my Maxroll friends. Maybe we give a short introduction. Panda, Beat, and then Sirok.
Yeah, sure thing. I can start, I guess. Name's Beat Dropper, and I've been playing Barbarian since Season 0, always been like a big RPG lover. Sorry about that. Been playing mostly most RPGs that were on the market, quite a lot, but outside of that, I'm just your casual 9 to 5 guy working a day job and just blasting by night.
Yeah, Sirok next.
All right, I'm Sarek. I'm a Necromancer writer. It's pretty much all I do. Started out with a little Spiritborn this season, but I'm back to Necro. Played a lot of ARPGs, a lot of shooters, a lot of RTS, but here I am.
Hey, yeah, and I am Panda Glassjaw, so I play all the classes, but Sorcerer is my favorite, and also I write the guides, or I don't write the guides, I write some of the guides. Northward writes the guides, right? But I write some of the guides for Sorcerer, and I did a bunch of the leveling guides this season, so if you use one of those, you might have read some of my work.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm Chronix, usually on the Necro side of things for the build guides, but since we are very well situated over there now with Sirok joining and Sora, we did a little switcheroo for the upcoming seasons where I go and do some Spiritborn stuff now instead. I'm very much looking forward to that. Let's jump into the first topic already, talking about Spiritborn and general gameplay flow. We can go into classes and stuff a little bit later on. But first and foremost, I wanted to talk about the weaving of different activities. I enjoyed it quite a lot, having multiple activities coming up throughout my general progression, going from level 1 to 60, and then also from Torment 1 to Torment 4. How are your guys' thoughts about the activities that you do, not only during the leveling, but also as soon as you go more into the end game of phases? Maybe Beat Dropper, you can start us off, and then we just chime in as we see fit.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm guessing like the first focus on everyone at the start of the season was trying to get those tormented bosses down, right? So in that regard, this season felt much, much better. At least I feel, because Helltides were no longer as present as they used to be. You would get, to be honest, like a crap ton of materials just doing like virus activities, and you could basically end up just like chaining back-to-back tormented bosses into going back using tribute for the Undercity into going back to tormented bosses. So in that regard, I feel like the tormented loop farm, I guess, felt really good. What do you guys think?
I think one of the things for leveling, at least, was they didn't lock us into content where they did on PTR. Being able to, if I want to go straight independent and get it handed to me, that's my call. It's not the game's call. So it did felt good in that progression sense of being able to, I loaded a few legendaries now. I've got some aspects that make the build function. I don't need to be walking through, early levels when I can go independent and get better levels and get to tormented quicker. So I really like that they unlocked that side of it. I do really like you said, the boss loot, being able to, farm some tributes, get your boss mats, and by running the bosses, you actually get your tributes again. So if your focus is on the bosses, like it's just an infinite loop of being able to get more tributes, going into more boss mats, and just it feels good having an actual gameplay loop this season, substantially more than it has in the previous seasons.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I would like to counterpoint. I'm somebody that does a lot of bosses. I do a lot of like community help with bosses, and boss materials are like in such large supply now that you could literally just run bosses all the time, right?
Yeah.
The problem with this is that that's literally the most efficient thing you could do in the game. Is bosses. And
yeah, I agree on that.
Bosses,
being
right?
a bit of a pain point, yeah.
The gameplay of bosses is you summon the boss, you kill it, you collect your loot, and you do it 100 times, right? I'm not a huge fan of this because after you do those 100 bosses, what should you go do? Farm 100 more bosses. It's like, it kind of stings because it feels like the level progression was great, right? Because you do the bosses to get your uniques, and then you kind of just keep moving on, trying to push the pits or do whatever, get refinement materials, upgrade, progress, right? But once you actually reach the end game and you're kind of tier 4 and you're geared up, it's pretty much just boss loop, and it doesn't feel like you're rewarded very well for doing anything other than that. Which it's like, I can kind of get into it, right? But my preferred outcome would be, and this may be controversial, right, is we should get less materials. The materials should be harder to get, and the drop rate should be better on the bosses, so that we do less bosses, but we still get like kind of similar drop rate of like our time investment into doing the bosses. So it becomes more of a like, you farm the materials over time, not just you go farm the mats, you go do the bosses, then you go farm the mats, then you go do the bosses. I feel like it should be like, as you progress your character in multiple ways through different activities, either getting your refinement, hunting ancestral legendaries, whatever you might be doing, you should be making some progress towards that like big event of like, okay, now we have a chance at a mythic, let's go, right? Instead, it's kind of just like, where's the hype about bosses if you're just always infinite looping bosses?
I think part of the problem with that though is twofold. Like, and I know we're going to talk about that here in a minute, but just the overall cost of upgrading. Like you said, it is the most efficient to just run bosses over and over and get your max. Like that shouldn't be intended. Like there's no way should be the gameplay loop for mats. They, on the flip side though, they did it right by removing. Let me say it this way. I don't like it, but I think they did it right by removing ancestral legendaries from boss loot tables. Like,
yeah, I think I agree. Yep.
Yeah. So you have to do other content, whether it be the ancestral tributes, or you're running hordes, or you're running hell tides. Like you have to do other content to get your legendaries and aspects. So I think they did that part of it right. But the fail here is the fact that it is hands down most efficient common materials, and common materials are absolutely the bane of everyone's existence right now. I know it was a podcast yesterday. Some of the other guys were talking about how they don't see that issue. But all 4 of them are playing Spiritborn, where you don't even have to masterwork your gear. You walk into a pit in 150 and you clear it. Like that's not the same conversation as the other classes who have to sit there and roll double crits minimum for 45 minutes and waste all 100,000 of your iron chunks in that time period. And you have to focus on it. So it's a huge pain point getting those common materials. And to your point, 100%, it cannot be the most efficient way, even though it is, if that's the common loot farm or common material farm. So I think that piece of it's a major fail because it's driving that loop that you're talking about, where that's all you do is bossing.
Yeah, and it's not just the materials; it's also the gold. If you don't, I'm somebody that doesn't really do a lot of the trade market, mainly because I play hardcore. Not exclusively. Sometimes I play softcore, right? But very rarely. I haven't played it in a few seasons, and so it's like hardcore market, not very alive. It eventually gets going later in the season when enough people maybe get bored of softcore and convert to hardcore. But in the early, it's like the market is like people will have like 2 GA 3.0 Kepaleki and asking like 500 mil for it. You know what I mean? Like it's not.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's not like you're getting crazy gold, even if you get a GG item. It's kind of like you get a GG item, just save it in case you want to use it. So without getting gold from the market, you end up in this situation where what's the best way to get gold? Just do bosses. And you just sell the uniques, and then you break down the ancestral uniques to get the materials. And it's kind of like, Infernal Hordes are terrible per gold. I wouldn't even consider doing them per gold. You know what I mean? And it's a struggle for anybody that's not getting into the trade market in the marketplace. And bosses are, they are the loop. There is no other loop, basically.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. I wanted to comment on something we said earlier, where we can't forget that the amount of bosses that we are currently able to do is like not heavily, but it's definitely inflated by the opals, right? We can't forget about that. I don't even want to know how much more in terms of a percent bosses we can run due to the opals. Yeah, I don't know, maybe a third, maybe more or less, but I would say maybe a third just from like gut feeling. And obviously if they are gone, which I don't hope that is going to be the case, then we're already running less bosses. But that is a whole different other discussion than in terms of the repercussions, right? Not only are we going to miss a lot of common materials since we are running less bosses, but also especially hardcore players will have way less gold because they can't sell the uniques because they run less bosses, right? So it's kind of like a problem here that I really want to see how they are going to solve it. I just think the easiest way of solving this is just giving Legion events meaning again. I actually really liked that Legion events were a thing. And I don't know if any of you has done the new Legion event that came with Vessel of Hatred that is like near the
I haven't even looked at it.
It is one of the most fun activities that has been added in Vessel of Hatred, and no one has played it. No one has seen the coolest, in my opinion, the coolest thing in the entire game. 99% of the player base hasn't interacted with because Legion events are not a thing, or maybe a lot of people have, but we don't really get to hear their opinions. I think that is very important to cover the iron chunks and rawhides and stuff. And on top of that, I think maybe we should get rid of being able to like salvage uniques so that you instantly get way less values in the amount of boss runs that you can do. So you will feel way less forced to go and do your boss runs. You probably do those, and well, during leveling or during gearing up in Torment 1, 2, I think it was insane. It was super cool. But then you only go really there to maybe get 1 or 2 upgrades, and then it's just a mythic farm machine. But by switching them to only become gold, maybe at the later stages or so, then you can shift the focus of just farming bosses over and over to also the other activities. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
But I mean, I think that's 100% right. You know, you used to get 900 iron chunks and rawhide from running a Legion, and you get 40 now. And the problem with that is, you know, they're not up all the time. You can't chain those Legion events. And really the biggest problem is not the amount of mats we're getting. Like, the mats we're getting seem to be an appropriate number now. The problem is going from 0 master workings to only 4. We're not even talking about going into double critting, triple critting. We're talking about just getting to your 4 of 12. Cost 270 iron chunks. Like, how many, what is that? 7 Legion events you have to run for one item getting it to 4 of 12. It's not efficient. So the cost in itself, like, yeah, they need to buff Legions. Legions, especially the new one, are actually fun. It's a nice change of pace. Go hang out at the campfire for a few minutes, get your buff, and then run your Legion. For 40 iron chunks, which you now have to run 7 of those to upgrade a single piece of gear to 4 of 12. So the cost is not reflecting how much we're actually getting. So I think that what we're receiving is a fine number now. I think they did buff it to a level of which it feels okay to go run a Helltide now. It feels okay to run a Horde when you're getting 200 out of it. But when even a single Horde where you get 200 isn't enough to go to 4 of 12 on one item, that's where the big pain point is. It's the cost to upgrade it. So, you know, it does drive that entire concept of now you have to just run bosses again to upgrade a single item. Like personally, the other night, I was in a group that was dropping me their rings or their jewelry and weapons just so I could break them down as well to upgrade one single item in a build. One item. and we ran 2 hours worth of bosses where they were dropping me their breakdown uniques, and it still wasn't enough due to the sheer cost of resetting the 4 of 12.
So Rock living the streamer life at this point.
Yeah, streamer privilege indeed. I mean, yeah, like in my opinion, I feel like the bosses rotation in itself, as Chronic said, is pretty much like in a good spot. I would hate to see nerfs to that. So I'm sorry, I kind of disagree on the whole not salvaging uniques point that you mentioned. But I feel like I would rather them focus on buffing other activities instead of nerfing the one that are somewhat enjoyable at the moment. Don't show your butt? Okay, all good. Sorry about that, chat. So, as Serok said, I'm all in favor of like Legion event giving like at least 500 to like 1,000 chunks and rawhide, as they did before. I feel like that will be a good enough number to make them like a decent activity, because they also give you that EXP boost that is somewhat enjoyable. So you're still like kind of inclined to go there, and it's not like they up all the time, so it won't be game breaking for them to be like extra rewarding, I feel.
Yeah, especially now that experience after hitting max level actually makes sense now, right? When you were doing Legion events last season, you were like, well, okay, I stand at the campfire and I clicked the thing, but it didn't really do anything, right? At this point, you were like, oh, I'll take those 15% or however much it was, right? If it's especially also stacking with all the other stuff, that's quite a lot of experience you can actually get there, right? So that's pretty interesting. I just want to clarify, for the unique stuff, I'm just trying to spark a discussion here, right? I'm not advocating completely to please implement this in the game. I'm just trying to get your opinions on stuff and then maybe spark a discussion from that. So I'm glad that Beat says that's not so much what he looks to, but I also fully agree that we should probably just buff the other things and not nerf the boss roaders. Although I do also agree a lot with Panda, what Panda said with like, it's just too good to not do. I'm very curious how it's going to work out when we don't have the additional boss materials coming from the opals next season.
Yeah.
Right, that's going to be very interesting how that's going to work out.
Yeah,
I think it will probably bring them more in line. Yeah,
do less bosses and just get rewarded better with the loot. And then I would prefer, like you guys said, materials coming from something like Legion, so it has a purpose in the end game. And then combined with Infernal Hordes can easily be just back to giving good gold like it did last season. Like the economy didn't change at all. There's no reason for the gold to be reduced because people who didn't trade before last season, they could masterwork their gear, no problem. They could just do hordes, get the materials when they need it, get the gold when they need it, and then they just masterwork. There's no need to go trade on the market and try to like flip an item for billions just so you can play the game. You could just farm a billion playing the game. And now that's not a very realistic thing to do in a session. Like it through any activity, right? Like getting a billion gold in one session is not very likely. Whereas before, that was something you could do. It'd take a few hours, right? But if you just grinded hordes, always got gold, you could farm it up. And without having that option, it even limits some like casual players' access to the market because maybe they don't understand what to look for and what GG item is going to sell for a billion. But if they can get started and get like that one piece they really want, then it's like, I just don't see removing gold from the game being positive on the player base in any way or whatever.
Yeah, I do agree that I would love hordes to be back to being one of the main like gold farm spot, because in the end, like at the moment, the only way to make gold in the game is pretty much to trade, right? So if you want to trade, either you trade GA uniques, which means more boss rotation, or you trade ancestrals, which are pretty scarce still. And I think the only way to pretty much like solve that issue is either to bring back like a good income of gold in the form of like Infernal Horde. I think will be like a good thing, or maybe have tributes work as intended. I'd say, because I don't know about you guys, but I felt like tributes were supposed to be the main way for us to like target farm ancestrals, get good GG items, right? And if you get one you don't use for your build, you can just sell it, and that's another gold income. But since we're getting all those tribute issues, them being fairly scarce on top of it, I feel like you just default to doing boss rotation and pray to get that triple GA BLT or whatever unique is the flavor of the day for Spiritborn.
Yeah, I'm very curious how they're going to adjust that. I do have to be honest, me going from hardcore to softcore this season after we did all the race stuff, I was actually shocked how easy it was to get gold with trading. It was insane to me. I found like you find 1 GA pants with like Dex, Max Life, and Armor, any combination of that with just 1 GA. There you go, you have 1 billion. And I don't know, I find like 3 or 4 of these a day when I blast. It's like I never had this much gold in my Diablo 4 life on hardcore. It was crazy. I was sitting at like comfortably 6 billion. I was like, what am I supposed to do with all of this? But yeah, I think we have the gold sink in place for people that are trading with the target farming of the tributes. So I really hope that they start working so they can get rid of their gold. But currently the problem is we can't generate gold if we're not trading. And I don't understand why Infernal Hordes don't take that place. Because right now Infernal Hordes to me seem completely lost in the endgame. There is nothing you shouldn't really go there, in my opinion, currently. You should go there maybe while you're gearing up, because that's the easiest way of finding an ancestral, right? You just click the 200 ether box and you pop out an ancestral.
Obsidite farm too. The Nightmare Dungeons you actually have to try, right? But
yeah, they're a great Obsidite farm right now.
Yeah, I would disagree with that, to be honest. I think I'm way faster.
Dungeons are better, right? But
I'm way faster than Nightmare Dungeons. But okay,
but you're also playing a Spiritborn.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. Like if I was still playing Necro, I would be doing Infernal Hordes the whole day. That's true, for sure.
If I can stand in spot and throw my blood wave around the circle and it hits everything, it's way faster than running Nightmare Dungeons like tenfold. Yeah. And to that point, so I have an evade Spiritborn. I'm going to make a real. I know this is not even on one of our topics, but here's a true point. I made a Spiritborn when we first started the season, and I turned it into the evade build. And some of y'all know Ruse. The other night, Ruse was talking about how he made the speed farming Necro, and it's going to compete with Spiritborns for speed farm. And I'm like, dude, you have not seen an evade build. You can't say that a build that has to stop and attack to kill things is going to be faster than a build that literally pushes the evade button and the screen dies. So we both ran multiple tributes, and it was like I'm completing the 3rd floor going to the boss when he's entering 2nd floor. So there is a huge disparity in speed farming for other classes. So sure, saying running Nightmare Dungeons is the best for a Spiritborn, the other 5 classes are not that way. So it's not, there's a huge discrepancy in that respect.
Yeah, I fully agree with Sirach on that one. I'm sorry.
Oh man, even barbs are... No, it's okay. Like, even barbs are slow nowadays? Holy, okay.
I mean, you gotta, like, as Sirach said, like, the main issue will be you have to stop to cast, right? And Barb Whirlwind build got pretty much nuked. I mean, it's still doing decently in the pit 90s, right? But it's not gonna go much higher. Pretty much. So you do end up being having to rely, on other build that actually actively cast skills to kill things. And the best version we have at the moment of those kind of skills is Mighty Throw, and you have to stop to cast Mighty Throw. So holds just feel good. You just lay your weapons around. It kills shit. You're happy. If you have to do that while moving, then it's pretty much like no different than running like a pit variant. There's no real like giga speed version that exists. Like the best speed farm build for Barb will always be Leapquake or Whirlwind, and those are just not that good at difficult content. The damage output is just not there.
Welcome to the entire sorcerer class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that we can discuss now as well. It's absolutely no problem in terms of like the mid-season patch speculations. If we just want to bring that one forward, that's totally fine. I mean, I have seen just maybe half an hour ago or so, Rod Ferguson did a poll on Twitter if how people would like them to handle the Spiritborn situation, and it's not a not a binding poll. He just wants to get like a temperature check, right? And it's like, do people want to just leave it run and let people enjoy the craziness that is then gonna come to a halt with Season 7 release? Or do they want to, or do people want that to be fixed? Maybe I can get your opinions on it while I'm opening the poll on my phone real quick to see how the community actually thinks about it.
Yeah, sure. Panda, maybe? I didn't hear you speak much, but maybe we did talk too late a little bit. You want to go first with Spiritborn, Panda?
Yeah, so I can see both sides of the argument, right? I can see it is way overtuned, right? And obviously the bugs need to be fixed and be brought down to the other classes' levels. But I also see the argument of it's very fun. And when they take it away, people, how many people do you think are going to keep playing if that was like their jam for the season, right? A lot of people are just going to be like, hey, well, season over. See you next season. And that's normal for ARPGs, right? If a big change happens and they're no longer satisfied, there's nothing, like, they're not just going to go on the struggle bus on the other classes if they didn't already enjoy it. So if what people really like is to just blast, then that's like, I don't know. I'd love to see the results of the poll, right?
Yeah,
the results right now are overwhelmingly leave it alone.
Yeah, I can provide the info. So it's actually 4,650 votes. So that's kind of representable, right? And 37% want to fix it now, and 63% want to leave it until Season 7.
Yeah. So here's my take on it. Like, it is unhealthy for the game. It is unhealthy for the game to have a class that can 3-minute pit 150s. And the next closest class is pushing 118s, 120s in 14 minutes and 59 seconds. It is unhealthy for the game. My side take on that is, don't nerf it. This is an ARPG. We're supposed to be feeling that we can smash that type of content. That's the whole purpose of an ARPG, is like, you get lit, you blast to get it, and then you just dominate any content you walk into. So putting a pit 150 in for it, I mean, there's a power creep, right? Like, I hate that term, but that's what it is. Like, they put a pit 150 in and then say, you can't reach this, then why is it in the game? Like, don't put it in the game at all. Don't even put a number on it. Just say they're infinite and as high you can get.
I'll be honest, I agree.
But there's no reason to put something in that's unattainable. And it's even more demoralizing and unhealthy for the game to have where one class that is using bugs to even work in the first place can do it in 3 minutes, while the other classes can't even, do a 3-minute 110. So I think that the solution is not to nerf it. Like, and I even saw in his poll, like, to buff the other classes, and he made that the sticking point of, we're not doing that. Well, why not? Why shouldn't every class feel like they can blast away? Like, sure, you make some jank build where you're putting these random uniques in, right? So if you build some,
the problem isn't that, like, Spiritborn is busted and it's breaking the game and everyone hates it. It's like, the problem is people are having fun, right? And then people aren't necessarily having fun on these other classes. So if you just take away the fun, right, and then you're like, okay, well, now everybody that's gotten a taste of this, go and do that thing that nobody wanted to do. Not nobody, right? Because I enjoy all the classes. I'm in the middle of leveling all the classes to Torment 4 with no mythics. And we've done Barbarian, Sorcerer, Spiritborn, Druids, and T3 right now. So we're like getting there with all of them, right? And through that progression, because I wasn't abusing anything on my Spiritborn whenever I would leveled up, besides like the Evade build a little bit, right? While it was still pretty OP, which is still good now, right? Just not as good. It's a very stark difference between if you are abusing some kind of bug or, you know what I mean, mechanic, versus you're just trying to use whatever aspects and glyphs you get and put on like a meta build without any kind of weird interaction. There's actually like a struggle in the progression, and that can be fun and enjoyable, right? But at the end of that struggle, there should be like light at the end of the tunnel, right? You should reach that power goal where we've broken through to tier 4. We're now farming tier 4. Now I can do torment bosses by myself. Then I can just do like, you know what I mean? I can blast T4, 4-man, right? I can carry my friends, get them on my level. If you can't quite get that same experience with every class, people are going to convert to the class that is, right, blasting and carrying their friends, because they want to blast and they want to carry their friends and they want to blast themselves too and not worry about having to be carried if they do want to go solo.
Yeah, that's 100% the feeling that I've got. Like, why should I have to go make another class to have fun? Like, just let us all be fun. You know, I mean, that's the whole point I've made. Like, don't nerf it. Like, it needs to be fixed or something needs to happen because it's unhealthy. But getting away and just saying we've got a number you'll never reach because we just put it in there, I mean, that just doesn't make sense. So let every class have some crazy stuff. Buff us all. Stop trying to, you know, with all the nerfs and everything. I mean, you got builds in most classes that you cannot use now because they're just so bad. And that just doesn't make sense. Like if somebody wants to go out and run a companion druid to pit 150, let them. Like, have fun. Don't limit what people want to do. There you go. So it's just so just, you know, limiting what people can do with their fun is not a healthy state when, like, we're putting a Twitter poll out to say, should we nerf something or leave it? And the entire majority is saying, leave it. Like, it's resounding that people want to go out there and blast and have fun. Let it happen.
Yeah, I fully disagree, and I think Spiritborn needs to be nuked ASAP. For like, basically, I got like two reasons. The first one being, I do think Spiritborn balance outside of bugs should be somewhat decent, but that's something we will never know until they fix the bugs, right? Yeah. So I'll say the sooner they do it, the sooner we will have like a real look at the class balance, and the better.
They fix the bugs. It's still the best class, though, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's the kind of the point that I'm getting at, is that even if without the bugs, like, it's still we don't know for sure, right? Unless they do fix it, we won't see what it actually feels like until they make that decision.
Yeah, my first point was more about, I kind of want to avoid like them pretty much keeping the current state of Spiritborn and say, okay, we'll fix it for season 7, and season 7 starts and turns out there are 2 or 3 more bugs out there, and Spiritborn ends up in the same state as season 6. I feel like the sooner they fix the bugs, the better for the game. Which pretty much leads me to like my second reason, and I do agree that the pace of the game is like vastly different between Spiritborn and other classes right now, which is the main reason we're having this conversation, right?
Yeah. But to be fair though, imagine season 2, right?
Yeah.
Imagine they fix ball lightning in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
Right. Sorcerer.
It will feel like shit.
In the water class for AOZ. Yeah. And it would like, I don't even think it would get a tier 20 done, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a big. I mean, we can all agree that the bugs needs to be fixed ASAP, right?
Yeah.
But I
do think the bugs need to be fixed.
And I also think we all agree that it should be before season 7, so that we can actually assess the power level of Spiritborn a little bit better without the bugs. Maybe discover some other stuff that can then be fixed for going into season 7, right? We kind of get this double check of bugs that way. That would be very good, I think, for the game. We're probably not going to catch everything in the PTR, right? That is coming for season 7. So I think that is extremely important. But on the other hand, imagine the people that do not blast 10 hours every day. They see the crushing hand, they see the quill volley, and they are just now getting into Torment 4, and they get ready to annihilate the whole game, and they have been working towards it for the last 2 weeks, and now they can hope they are just about to get their dopamine hit that they have been working for the last 2 weeks. And then you take it away from them, they will never return until the next expansion. And I think that is the biggest problem that we're currently facing.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is, if you take away the fun right now and it ends up being like worst case scenario, Spiritborn is like equal to the other classes, right? People are going to be upset by that. And if you leave it the way it is, so let me put it this way, more people are going to be upset by that, right? If you leave it the way it is, not only is it less like overall people probably being upset, it's also the same number of people are already like you don't increase the number of people frustrated. You don't increase the tension of the situation. You just keep it the same, right? And I think that in this scenario, I think the negative is going to outweigh the positive of fixing it in the middle of the season. My personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see long term.
Point of view, 100% it should be fixed, right?
Yeah, like I'm trying to see long term there. The two problem I see with them pretty much like delaying or the Spiritborn changes or just like not nerfing it entirely is the first one is they basically worked on the pace of the game for the past year, and they said Torment 4 was supposed to be tough. They said they pretty much like leveled Torment 1 to Torment 4, so you would still have decent enough rewards. Like you would still be lacking some bonus EXP, some bonus gold, some bonus loot by farming Torment 1. But Torment 4 was supposed to be an achievement in itself. You were supposed to like grind your way for a couple days, couple weeks if you're not a blaster, like most of us. And you end up there, and then you're happy. Same goes for the pit. The first time you clear pit 100, you're like, okay, now I can finally get my glyphs to around level 100. I know I can do it. And in the meantime, you see that guy basically teleporting across the screen at Mach 5. He's wearing like his grandmother's pants. Basically, just like one unique when you are been spending like the past 2 days farming 4 mythic for your build. The best thing the guy has is like a level 600 mythic, Pepeleke, right? And he just ends up destroying your entire achievements, every single achievements you've made, and just blasting through the game. So I do agree that we are ARPG blasters, right? We do like to blast, not stop, just blast through the game. But I feel like the pace of the game as designed by the dev for the past year is just to have a somewhat slow to mid pace where you feel the difference between speed farming and pushing builds. And in that regard, I think Spiritborn is an aberration.
Yeah, so I mean, there's never going to be a situation where there is not something that's a meta. We're never going to have a season where you can pick up and do the same content with every single build, with every single class. That to me is not an issue. That's why we play games like this. There's always the meta changes. Next season, one build should be, look at Necromancer. Season 1 and 2, you played Bone Spear because it was so overpowered that it was just unholy. Now, if you play Bone Spear, people literally just laugh at you. So there's going to be meta changes. There's going to be stuff that nerfs one build but buffs another, and that's the seasonal. That's what we expect in a season, and so that to me is not going to change. Like that'll never change. There's nothing you can do about it, and I have no problem with even classes being the meta over other classes. Like that's not that is not at all an issue for me. What I do have an issue with is the situation the game's currently in, like with the Spiritborn, and that to me is a problem. And yeah, it very well could be. Every bug could be fixed with Spiritborn, and it would still be the #1 class. Great, sounds good. I have no problem with that. But the fact is, that's not what's actually happening now. It is a multitude of bugs, and that's what's unhealthy to the game. Is it's one of those things. Like if you're playing other classes, you are kind of just like dead in the water. It's not even efficient to play the game. I don't even farm on my Necro because it's so inefficient. So it's just disproportionately impacting the game right now from all the bugs. So
Yeah.
do we nerf Spiritborn where it's not fun anymore? No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Panda, keep going.
No, just there's no reason. Like you can't. There's a difference in nerfing and fixing bugs that are game changing.
Yeah, my opinion is that every class, the pinnacle of balance for me, and this is my own personal opinion, right, is that if every class, once they get a mythic and they like 2-hit, they double hit, whatever, everything they want, right, or even just single hit, but have like GAs in the right place, right, and they have like every mythic, they have everything they have at their disposal, and they're playing their class, and they pick a meta build for that class. That combination of power and gear and farming that you reached and achieved that success should lead you to being able to carry people. You should be able to do tier 4 and carry a 4-man boss and just spam the 100 bosses, instant delete the boss, collect your loot, like because that's what people want, right? Is to feel the power after they've achieved it. The way it is right now is you achieve that power, right? And then you don't really feel it if you're not playing Spiritborn. Or yeah. I wouldn't say if you're not playing Spiritborn, but if you're playing, so I haven't played all the classes in tier 4, right, to a high level yet. But if you're playing Sork, it takes a lot of investment. And even then, you probably have like a Spiritborn booster glyphs, right? And I wouldn't care about how much the Spiritborn are blasting 150s if I could just blast all of T4 content, all of like the relative content, and push to 100 and get my glyphs to 100. I wouldn't care how high I go past 100 if I could just do that. But instead, I'm like relegated to, if I want to help people, I play a Spiritborn. If I want to have fun, I probably play Spiritborn too. Let's be real. But no, I still enjoy playing all the other classes, and I still get to experience that like progression and struggle. It's just, it doesn't feel as good if at the end of the struggle you're not rewarded for the time you've invested into this class, in this build or the game, right?
Yeah, it feels like there's indeed like the legacy game pace, and then there's the 2.0 game pace.
Yeah, I think
legacy only applies to the old classes, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're also having our perception altered at the moment. I think when all of this, when Spiritborn, I think the game is supposed to feel hard in Torment 4, how it currently does for all the other classes. The problem is that is not being felt because just invite a Spiritborn and one-shot everything, right? So as soon as Spiritborn gets put into place again and balanced out, I think that we will go to a place, or at least I hope so, that we go to a place where you only really go to Torment 4, but you're not going to one-shot bosses. You only go there, you farm, maybe you farm Overworld quite efficiently. Maybe you go there for like, I don't know, some outer world farming. Maybe you go do Legion events, the new future buffed ones, for example, right? And you're going to go and do those. But I don't really think that it's supposed to be giga farming efficiency in Torment 4. I don't know how long it takes for you, Sarah, to kill a T4 boss in a 4-man party if there's no Spiritborn present on your Necro, right? If you are the carry, so to say. I don't know, but I think that is kind of like the pace that it's supposed to be played as when you go to the hardest difficulty. If you want to Giga Blast and maybe eke out a little bit more efficiency, you probably go down to Torment 3 and one-shot everything if you are not completely maxed on your build yet. Oh, we had... Wait. Beat, we don't. Now it's me twice again. Now I'm beat dropper in Chronics. Okay, there we go. We're back.
Yeah, I agree that I think that that's probably what they intended, right? That they were aiming for T4 to be a bit of a struggle, and the struggle that's being felt by the other classes maybe is what the Spiritborn are supposed to feel. But I think that the data, right, that we have from people playing the game shows that maybe that's not what they want, right? And they want to just blast T4. Maybe, like, I don't think that necessarily it should be as quick of a journey, right? But I do think that at a certain point, you should feel the power. And if you can't feel that power, like, yeah, I think that you shouldn't have two, like, unattainable contents. Like, it shouldn't be T4 is, like, borderline unattainable to farm, and then Pit's also 150 is, like, giga unattainable, until we get some mysterious extra modifier in the future to make us stronger, to be able to tackle harder content, right? Or they nerf the content. I'd rather the power curve somehow, like, stabilize, and when they want to add more difficulty, right, and our power is increasing too much, then they add another torment tier or whatever, right? But 150 to be like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the, like, there's content you just can't do. Like, imagine if you're playing a single player game, right? Or you're a solo player, and then there's this content in the game, right, that's been designed. They've spent money on designing this content. You expect to be able to play this content, and then you can't. Like, if it was a single-player game, people would be, like, up in arms, right? They'd be like, why is this here? What is the purpose of it, right? So I don't really understand why suddenly, because we're playing a multiplayer, that it, like, makes sense to have, like, to what's the purpose of designing the like, why invest the money in the content if it can't be done?
Right. Like, why is it there? If they've even, saying we don't expect anyone to ever get to this, why do we have it?
I mean, yeah, I'm probably like the polar opposite in that regard. Like, I think gamers, at least ARPG gamers, will be like one or two things, or maybe like two at the same time, which is either they are speed farmers, or they like the difficulty and they want to push as high and as hard as the content can be. So I'm probably more leaning toward the second part. In my case, I like to challenge myself, and I like to optimize my build to achieve a certain goal, right? And Pit is the exact good scale of content for me. It's a good way for me to measure up my builds against others, to have like a little bit of a friendly competition. And the fact that Pit 100 is somewhat hard, but still a decent goal for any classes outside of SB, right? Makes me feel like the Pit was in a good spot as designed. Like, you can go up to 100, get your glyph up to 100 that way. And if you want to push higher, you can keep committing to your build and try to push for 110, 115, 120.
Some of the classes can't get a 100 glyph.
Yeah, that's like another problem indeed, which is like the, let's say, like the floor difficulty of T4 and Pit 100, which is pretty much required to get your glyphs to 100, right? I feel like it's too hard for some builds and too hard for some classes as well. Like, Sorks are not in the best spot at the moment, outside of like the fireball bouncing thingy.
Yeah, but even that's not going to get a 100 by itself. You still need a Spiritborn to boost you.
I mean, it's definitely clear that every class needs a build that can get you to tier 100 in the pit, so you can finish the glyph grind at least, right? But to kind of like get back to the topic of why is there even 150 pit tier in the game if we can't reach it? I think in ARPG, if you go down to its core, it's a treadmill or a carrot on a stick, where you just keep doing the same thing over and over, and it's the it's the game developer's mission to obscure the fact that we are doing the same thing over and over again, and basically just chasing the carrot on the stick. And it's about how good can they obscure the fact that we will never reach that carrot that is when we feel a game is good, right? So that's, in my opinion, that's the reason why there is a paid 150, because you will never reach it, but maybe you might, just keep improving. Maybe you can do it, right? And I think it's working out pretty well. It worked out pretty well in the past, but just Spiritborn just blows through all these barriers that were set, and all these metrics are invalidated because Spiritborn currently is completely bugged. So I think when that is all fixed, also the meaning of pit 150 or pit 100 rather becomes way more valuable to the general player base. I think Spiritborn just destroys the whole idea of what Vessel of Hatred with all the changes try to actually do and implement across all classes.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, if you think about like the previous seasons, I think the only time we really had people playing, let's be honest, the season like past the 2 or 3 weeks mark was season 2 and season 4. So season 2 because AOZ released, season 4 because we had the pit and people wanted to keep pushing it. And I think in the case of season 6 right now, the pit being absolutely destroyed by Spiritborn as well as the rest of the content, right, is just turning out the game is, or the season is pretty much spoiled now for everyone that plays Spiritborn. They're like, okay, I've done my 2 weeks of Diablo. I have nothing left to complete. I have nothing left to do. The only thing I can do is re-roll to other classes, I guess. And it turns out...
what happens when you re-roll to another class?
They feel terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's the entire point of this.
Yeah, I think that's the core issue is people are having a lot of fun on Spiritborn, right? And it's ruining the fun of the other classes, but it's not because Spiritborn is, I mean, it is because Spiritborn is giga broken, right? But the other classes shouldn't have to struggle as much as they do once you reach the end game. Like, if every class could clear 100 and get their glyphs leveled, that I don't think there would be anywhere near as much uproar about the Spiritborn being bugged, or if Spiritborn got fixed either way, because people would be blasting on their favorite class. Everyone wouldn't have already, 70% of the community wouldn't have already invested into a Spiritborn that spent half of their time just farming this one character, and now it's not going to be good or whatever. It just depends how they fix it, right? How much gets fixed, how much still falls from the cracks, it falls through the cracks or whatever. And it's a hard one. 100%, I would rather the balance just be better, right?
Yep.
But since we're here now, it's like, man, I don't want to be the person that makes that decision.
Oh yeah, that's a rough one for sure. It's absolutely impossible to make the right decision there. I wouldn't want to be in their shoes at all. I think it's incredibly hard and basically impossible to make a good decision there. I wanted to maybe close out the topic by saying that the problem is when you are looking at the carrot on a stick analogy that I said. The problem is this season and all the previous seasons mostly, you can actually catch the carrot, but mostly not on the class that you wanted to catch it on, which completely invalidates you going to try and catch the carrot on your class, right? I think that's the problem.
What do you want me to say?
I think that's the problem with the Spiritborn, right? Why am I supposed to go and achieve my goal with this class and try super hard to go get it when I can just log on to Spiritborn and just instantly, without any effort, just go and get the reward, right? I think maybe we can, because now I think we all agree, and we all also said the same thing with. We don't really want to be in Blizzard shoes right now. I think it's a tough one for sure. Of
course, it is a tough choice, and it is not something. It's going to piss somebody off either way. And what's the best for the long term? But from, I think you said it best from a player standpoint. Not being able to reach that carrot without playing a different class is what feels bad.
100% agree. Yeah. Okay, so we kind of pulled that topic forward, but that's totally fine. It's going to be a little bit of a hard segue here, so I'll just dive right into it. Item progression. During leveling, during endgame, max-rolled aspect issues. No one has any aspect as a max roll that they want to have. How did you guys like it? Maybe we start out chronologically with like the early parts first, and then we go into the later games, into the later stages of the game right afterwards.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Sure.
Like for me, the item progression, I was actually expecting to have to go back to like doing codex dungeons to have like my first build enabling aspects. And turns out that wasn't the case. The legendary drop rate was like fairly good. The aspect variety, though, was kinda bad. Like I remember myself getting like 2 to 3 legendaries back to back with the same aspect, and it felt kind of bad at that time, to be honest. So we can probably talk about things being weighted in one way or another, but resource aspects were terrible to get. And unfortunately, at least for Barb, they are like super core to the leveling builds. Not getting any of these resource aspects feels terrible. The rest, you can probably just like make up like a decent build, even with like bad aspects, just through tempers. So in that regard, the tempering system felt really good early game, at least this season. Yeah, that's pretty much about it on my side for the leveling part. What do you guys feel?
I agree. I think the leveling was even more smoother than I expected. And again, previous comments about being able to dictate which game tier I was playing in really helped that too, because like you said, the legendary drop rate was very good. It didn't feel like I was just searching for stuff. It kind of came naturally as I was progressing and was able to see, okay, well, I did get this, so I can spec into this build that is going to effectively get me to the next tier. So I think the early progression was very good. Being able to like you said, not use the codex stuff did feel good. There's been a few, I think it seems to be the case for every class. There's a couple of aspects that have just been these unattainable aspects, not just a good one, just even a mid one. Seems to be a few for each class that have been that way this season. But you got enough of the other ones that you were able to progress, and even if you had to switch into your build to do something else, you were able to still progress at a very good pace that didn't feel like you were really being held back even from your other playmates. So it was good. I do think with anything though, there is going to be those builds that are defined by certain aspects, and you just can't get them. And every season's been that way. Looking back, there was one season it was exposed flesh for Necromancer. I mean, it's been a different aspect every season, right? So that's always going to be. So there's not going to be the situation where I'm going in and I'm leveling with this build. You can't have that mindset, because you are going to loot stuff that are going to be more effective to do. And it really felt like the legendary drop rate early on was really tuned well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Chronic enjoyed leveling.
What did you say, Penna? Sorry.
Sorry. I was just saying I definitely enjoyed the leveling process. I thought that the balance feels great. If you get good loot, you can go up in difficulty if you want. If you don't, you can just keep blasting on normal. I love that the campaign was the best leveling method, but at the same time, I do wish, I don't know. I kind of wish that the other activities were just a little bit faster. But I do kind of like the campaign being the best kind of leveling method right now, because I just like speedrunning that kind of content. I liked the campaign. I thought it was kind of cool. So with the item progression the way it is, with the difficulty system set up the way it is, I think that it feels great to level personally.
Yeah,
as a hardcore player, especially because you can choose how much danger you want along the way. Yeah, maybe it's a little too easy or something, but I think that's kind of fine, because you don't really have a lot of, if you're on a season start, you don't really have a lot of option for what to do if you don't get the right loot or whatever that you're looking for. So if it was like you suddenly need legendaries to even play on normal, I think that would feel really bad. And the leveling felt great.
I mean, you kind of have to remember also that this season is pretty much like a one in the pool. I mean, it's like the only season where we actually like the most optimal way to level was to just blast the campaign on normal. So for season 7 is pretty much like gonna be like the norm for the next year, in a way that we're gonna have like to look at different activities. There's not just gonna be campaign to level up.
Yeah.
So people might have at that point, they're gonna want to try to blast the game on hard or expert, because campaign giving us like 2/3, like completing objective giving us like 2/3 of our overall EXP, and monster killing barely giving us like 1/3, is not going to be a thing for season 7. We're going to get back to much more EXP by trying to get more XP killing monsters.
And I think it should be rewarded more. Yeah, I should say that. I think that the higher difficulties should be more rewarding, or rather that the, like you said, the weight of the experience needs to shift back towards killing monsters, so that because the majority of people that are playing ARPG, I said that I like doing the speedrun campaign stuff, but I also realized that I'm in a minority there. The majority of people would rather just go blast some monsters in Helltide to level their alt, probably, or just to get started on a season if there's no major story content.
Yeah, the problem that is not you will not achieve that balance when you want to speedrun the campaign, because in the campaign you have absolutely no density and you are being slowed down by bosses. So the most optimal thing is to reduce the time you spend on bosses, which you can only do by playing on normal. So the thing that is actually super cool with the new difficulty system, where you get a new item and you bump up the difficulty and get a reward in terms of higher experience gain, is not present in the campaign, because that's the stupidest thing you could do, because you just need to go through it very fast, because there is absolutely no monsters that you can actually profit off of the higher experience multiplier that you get from bumping up the difficulty. Right, that counterintuitive scaling there will always be a problem between the two, between blasting the campaign and doing the Helltide leveling, for example. Right, so I don't know how to fix it. I think it's actually cool if you can speedrun the campaign and be as quick as like dopamine tunnels in season 1 or 2, right? But or season 2 and 3 rather, and I think that's unfortunately not going to happen, that you will ever play the campaign on like hard difficulty, right? Because it's just, there's no way you're making up for that HP gain, therefore time loss, with a little bit of experience multiplier that you get from killing the very low amount of monsters in the campaign.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right? I do think, sorry, just one last point. I do think it's super cool though that we have something like that in the game. We had that with World Tier 1 and World Tier 2, although probably everyone was blasting World Tier 2 anyway. Now we have the thing where everyone just blasts normal, and then if you get a unique from the seasonal journey, or you have your build suddenly rolling at level 30, you go like, okay, let's go hard now. And actually you blast through hard, and then maybe you bump it up a notch and you notice, oh, okay, no, that's not efficient. And now you can go back. I think that's also a very fun part of leveling itself, which unfortunately is only present during non-campaign season starts.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, what I was about to say, sorry, was that I do support, and I think it's a really good thing, that campaign is still like decently competitive when it comes to leveling, right? Because I kind of want as well, and I can see the need for some people that are gonna get back to the game in season 7 and be like, okay, so maybe this time I want to do campaign leveling. So okay, the most efficient is still to do like normal campaign, maybe bump it too hard from time to time if I feel like I'm really like omega blasting. But the option is there, right? I can level up in a decent time just doing the campaign, which is something we never had before, because the objective rewards when it comes to EXP were so kind of lackluster, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
But
oh, sorry.
I do, yeah, no problem. But I still do also like
Just a second.
the fact that we can go, as you said, just like maybe go like non-campaign mode, so like pretty much like adventure mode, right, from Diablo 3. And you can just bump up the difficulty when you feel like it's too easy, and bump it down again when it's too hard. And I like that kind of leveling experience, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. I think that they just need to. I think that the campaign is great. It's amazing the way you can speedrun it right now. I don't even think it should be nerfed. But what they should do is make it to where somehow, if you choose not to do the campaign and you go on higher difficulties, especially, then you're like significantly rewarded for that in some way, right? Maybe you're getting better loot that's noticeably better, right? Or you are just in some way going faster, right? I don't know how they could alter that, but it would feel better if the people that want to blast weren't like almost a couple hours behind or like an hour behind the speedrunners that are just doing the campaign.
Yeah, I think they will even it out with the data that they have collected during the season start this time. And who knows, maybe we have some changes coming up and we have like a staggered season 7 PTR again, where for the first 1 or 2 days we actually have to level up our characters again like we did in season 6. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but I mean, if they needed more data, that would always be a possibility, right? Okay, but for I think that's the progression or the item progression and everything during the leveling part. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the end game part, and I wanted to start us off with the one point that I think destroyed this whole genius setup that they had in terms of the world tiers and everything. Unfortunately, the most efficient thing to do when you hit level 60, no matter which world tier difficulty which difficulty you currently were, you shouldn't have gone to the pit and grinded the pit. Instead, you should have just lowered the difficulty to normal and blasted through nightmare dungeons to get 750 item level gear for absolutely no difficulty, right? I think that was unfortunately a very big mistake. Because it didn't make any sense to go and do stuff on Penitent, and you basically skipped that through, and then you went straight to Torment 1, and then the progression became very fulfilling again for me. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on maybe the 750 normal topic, and then also on the higher torments. Maybe Sorok,
you want to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
you can start us off.
So like the 750 to 800 thing, like you're investing, and this goes back to what we talked about for 30 minutes, was the whole investment piece of the common materials. Like, how much did we waste getting from 700 to 800, just getting to that next tier? It just didn't make much of an impact having 750 gear, right? Like it did going into the next tier of the torment difficulties, but it wasn't as impactful as getting the upgrades on the 800 gear. So, when we were in the PTR and we had our original gear, and I know things weren't the same from PTR to live, but we went in with our legacy gear on PTR. That's what was brought over, and now all of that was eye level 550. I think it was. It was substantially lower than even they. It was like 500 something. So, being able to see that the discrepancy in doing World Tier 1 versus what you could get in Penitent versus getting that first piece of Ancestral gear, like I very quickly went from seeing that one piece of Ancestral gear was worth investing more, even if it wasn't the right greater affix, than it was investing into the 750 that I had for 20 minutes until I got another Ancestral. I mean, the Ancestral drops are lower than that, but I'm exaggerating a little bit. But there wasn't as much of an impact as getting to that 800 piece.
Yeah, in my case, I had a pretty newbie experience in that regard. So basically what happened was that I blasted the campaign on normal, same as everyone, I guess. I made the remaining levels following our beloved content creators, which was basically doing strongholds to get those remaining 5 to 6 levels. Just blasted them on normal as well. And as soon as I hit level 60, I went to the pit, unlocked Torment 1, because I knew that the first thing I wanted was to get my weapons eye level 800. I did just that, and then I went back to Penitent to farm the rest of my gear to get 750 items, because I knew that I will never be able to sustain masterworking high level 800 items. I will never have the mats, it will cost just way too much. So the idea I had in mind was just get the weapons, because they give you so much power. Just get ancestral weapons. And the rest of the armor, the rest of your non-used weapons, those can be 750 for like a long time. It's fine. Like the cap, worst case, is 8 out of 12 masterwork. It's plenty fine. But I had like a big issue with materials early on, so that's what I did. And I think the mistake I did, though, was that I started farming those 750 items in Penitent when I should have just done them in normal, as you said, rightfully so.
Yeah. For me, I kind of liked the way it worked out, but I can see the argument against it, I guess. Even as a sorcerer, right, and like not really any particularly great setup, I just immediately blasted to Torment 1 as soon as I was 60, and then just started farming Torment 1 so I had a chance at Ancestrals. But I kind of want that experience because I don't really want to ever farm. Once I'm done leveling, I feel like now is the time that I can get Ancestrals. So with Ancestrals being locked behind Torment 1, I would appreciate an easy path into Torment 1 as soon as I hit level 60. You still have to get like your resist capped and whatnot, so there's still a little bit of a struggle with your gear. You have to be selective about what you have, especially on hardcore. And I do like how big of a bump you get from Ancestrals as you start to get them, and they feel very rewarding in the beginning. However, they quickly escalate into a big problem in the in-game farm, right? It becomes very difficult to get any specific ancestral legendary you're looking for, and it becomes ridiculous. I'm sure everyone knows, right? The max aspect issue. So it's like this kind of this issue where the ancestral drop rate kind of feels good in T1, right? T2, but maybe it needs to be like significantly increased in Torment 4 in some way. Maybe not. You see, this is like, it's hard because it doesn't feel that bad, right? And I want there to be a reason to be doing other stuff other than bosses, right? So I don't really want it to be you just get them too quick, right? It could be that maybe the aspect thing just needs to change, right? And it just needs to go back to you don't need an ancestral to get the max aspect. That would probably be the easiest solution, because then you don't have to change the scaling of the ancestral drop rate, which feels like kind of good and rewarding.
Yeah, I feel like I really like the idea that they had with the Ancestrals and the Maxroll aspects kind of like being a little bit harder to get. But I think the problem why it feels so bad in the current iteration of the game is that there is absolutely no way how you can impact which aspect you are going to get, right? I have some on max, but they are probably layered wards which I'm never going to use, or some Wild Claws aspect, which is just usable in like one out of the 6 builds.
Too big for the ancestral drop rate, basically.
Yeah, and I think we need I think it's okay to have this system in place, because that's another carrot on the stick edit. But the problem is you need to give the player some agency of how to farm a next upgrade on your aspect. So I don't know how that is going to look, but I think that it only looks so, or it feels so bad because we can't target farm that, or we can't influence the aspect that we are finding, or the one that we are currently working on. I think we need, maybe that is something that you can put in the Undercity or so, but some way of target farming the ancestral legendary would be very good, to have an additional grind in the game that feels very rewarding when you succeed. But currently, with just complete RNG, is just awful.
Well, it's not just the RNG piece of it. I like the system. I like that you can't go in and just guarantee a max aspect at level 25. Like, I like the fact that there's an game chase for aspects. The problem I have with it is that you can loot a bottom rolled ancestral. That's the problem I have with it.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
So I've told a few people, has talked about this substantially. Like my fix, and you can tell me what you guys think about this, but there are ranges right now. Like Imprisoned Spirit aspect is one of the biggest aspects that Bone Spirit uses. The max you can get for a legendary on that is 70%. It goes to 80%. So the fix for me would just be simply, if your max on your legendary is 70, the minimum that you should be able to loot as an ancestral aspect should match that. So if you loot an ancestral, it's guaranteed to be a 70 rather than getting a 20%, which is, why am I getting a bot roll of an ancestral item? So I think that's a great easy fix for this, is the ancestral rolls should at least at minimum meet the max end that you could loot from the previous tier.
I'm not positive that would completely solve the problem, but I think that would be the easiest fix, like quick fix. Like another thing they could consider is changing it to more of a pity system, where if you break down any of that aspect enough times, you get a rank up. You know what I mean? Rather than you have, if you get unlucky enough and you never find an ancestral this aspect, but you broke down this aspect 20 times or whatever with any roll, then it's slowly counting towards a guaranteed 1 rank up. That would also help alleviate the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't see a single aspect upgrade in the past 10 days, and we've been salvaging way too many legendaries. At this point, and I'm sure it's the same for anyone else playing softcore and trading, I don't mind playing up to 2 billion for an aspect upgrade. And I think that's ridiculous.
Yeah, people have told me interdiction, for example, that's anywhere from 40 to 60 billion if you get a max one on software, right?
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. I think to me it doesn't matter which way we're gonna go, but something needs to change. Although I have to be honest, I think Serok's way would be a little bit too easy. I think maybe it shouldn't go in the example of Imprisoned aspect when the ancestral range is only 70 to 80. I think that would be a bit too easy. Maybe you don't go. Maybe the min roll shouldn't be exactly the max roll of the legendaries. Maybe it should be a tiny bit lower, but not the full range of the whole thing, right? Maybe,
and I think that's fair. It's just it's that feeling of, hey, I just looted an Imprisoned Spirit. Oh, it's a bot roll.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's the feeling that hurts the most.
Yeah, but
I personally like deterministic ways of improving my character. If RNG fails you for a whole week, then that's why I kind of would prefer more of a pity system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all fine with any of the solution. I feel basically increasing your luck through sheer volume works the same way as the pity system as well. The only concern or maybe problem I had with the new system was that it felt I don't know, in the past season, I'm not sure about you guys, but whenever I got a 1 to 3 GA or even 4 GA item, I always had a big unique aspect or a big roll on the aspect. And I feel this season I have never seen so many double, triple plus GAs with absolutely terrible min rolls. Yeah. And at some point I was do the number of GA have an influence on the effect you get on the legendary aspect or unique? Because I feel that was the case before, and I feel that thing is gone now. There's no min roll prevention at all, depending on the number of GAs you get on the item. However, I do agree with Serok. I feel the ancestrals should always have the minimum roll on the, max roll of the legendary normal pieces. I feel that will alleviate a lot of the issue. You'll still need to get the ancestral.
And even if that means you lowered the max of the legendary piece, right? There needs to be a progression. If there is if the progression says you can't get max until you're an ancestral, there shouldn't be that you can still get the minimum for ancestral. That was the whole point. Maybe that 10% is too wide or not wide enough a gap, but maybe that means lowering the legendary to 55%, 60%. So there is a higher range, but it's still, you're getting that progression by going to Ancestral.
Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty good solution. Although, yeah, I would like it to overlap, but I think at that point I would take any solution rather than having to run around with my interdiction still being at 10%.
Yeah.
Sorry, Panda, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was agreeing that I'll take literally any solution would be great.
Yeah. Because I feel like the systems are in place though. Like you can bargain for like offensive aspect or defensive aspect. You have the mercenary trading, right, with the coins that would also help you get some specific aspects. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, you do those and you get like 1 or 2 GAs out of a full inventory, and you need those 1 or 2 GAs to be max rolled, which never happens. So the odds are just too diluted, I guess.
Well, I think there's also a huge gap in maybe this is just my own personal expectation, but if I am going to barter at my mercenary shop and I'm in Torment 4 and I did this last night, 3,000 coins resetting my dude, and I showed 2 Ancestrals out of 3,000 coins. Like, same back to that feeling of like, that's not great. I'm in Torment 4, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and I just spent 3,000 coins after blasting all night, and I got 2 options at Ancestrals, and those 2 were absolutely garbage. So, if that, while we can target farm, you can't really, because there's not Ancestrals. So while you're still target farming it that way, it's not an efficient target farm. 3,000 coins to get 2 Ancestrals, that made no difference.
Yeah.
I have 8 characters now, so I do the bartering quite regularly because each one is their own free reset, and we're just going to keep increasing that number probably, but it doesn't feel super, super amazing. I mean, I'm even like, so cool tip too, you can buy the caches on any class, and it's based on whatever class you open them on, right? So yeah, I want a max interdiction, right? So I'm just, every class that I go on there, I see a defensive aspect cache, I buy that, like... And then I open it on my Spiritborn.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know about that one because the only 6 characters that I created this season were all Spiritborn, so it didn't matter on which one I open them. But yeah, that's a good tip, I guess.
I have a question. Why do you need more than 1 Spiritborn?
Because we don't have an armory yet,
I have 3 Spiritborn.
Oh, okay.
I am not respecking. Like I want to, especially when I'm switching classes, I need to play every single build, right? To understand like every little thing and be able to swap around, especially when you have Woody who giga brain stuff and he goes like, oh, you can do Yakin Shell with Vigorous, Resilient, and Midnight Sun and Kepeleke. And at the beginning, I was like looking at him, I'm like, what language are you speaking, right? You need to kind of up your game a little bit, right? So I need to learn literally everything about the names and all the other stuff, right? And I want to, just for me, have a full picture of the class. I did that with Rogue in Season 0. I did that with Necro in Season 1 and 2, right? And, well, that's why I blasted the 6 Spiritborns right there to not only have every build ready now going into Softcore Eternal, so that I can just go back in Season 7 and go like, oh, I have a fully set up character on Eternal, on Softcore from all of the modes, which is perfect for testing. I just can't go back there and log in and play the thing, and I have every build ready that I need, just with the instant availability, right? That's going to come in very handy for the testing in the future, right?
I have mad respect for you for leveling those glyphs 6 times.
Right, I mean, it's Spiritborn, it's so fast. Some of them are only 46, I clear 120s, no problem.
Okay.
Probably in blue gear also.
Yeah, they are half naked, because obviously I just swapped the gear around, right? Sarok goes into full disparage mode. It's good that we don't see him that well. His mouth went from upside to down. Okay, but buffs are coming. Buffs are coming. Necro and all, I think also all the other classes look extremely fine. It's just that Spiritborn is just completely over the top. Right?
Whoa. Wait, I don't know about extremely fine.
Okay. Sork is not so good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I always forget about our wand swinging friends.
You can play the most meta build. You're still not getting 100 without a Spiritborn carry.
Yeah, okay, that's definitely not good. Yeah, general impressions about the game modes that have been added. Dark Citadel, Undercity. We touched Undercity a little bit with the rewards, with the target farming. We already said a little bit if it was working, I think we would be very happy about it. I really like the zoomer approach that one has. I really like to call it Gauntlet 2.0 basically. Without the leaderboard, it's just super fun. But how do you guys feel about everything else that was added, basically? Dark Citadel at that point, right?
I mean, I love the new content. I think this is the best season we've had in this game. I think it's the most it's clearly the most content, but it's the most widespread of what you want to do. Now, that being said, I think it's also the least content for what you're doing. I've got some people in my play group that actually 3 or 4 of them have walked away with mythics out of the raid. But I think that completing a T4 raid that takes, I know Spiritborns are doing them in like 42 seconds for each wing. But anyway, normal classes are not doing that. So I think that, the content should drive your rewards, and getting 1 or 2 GA items out of it and the rest legendaries. So I think there should be some buffs to the rewards for the content, but even without the increased rewards, the content's really fun. I mean, you can target farm your boss match, you can target farm runes, especially getting into Torment 4 where you're not getting any blue runes, tributes, and go get some blue runes very quickly. So I think the content itself, this is in a great place, and I hope they keep adding stuff like this every season. So I've had the most fun in any season so far. Just the sheer amount of content that's out there.
Yeah, I think that the new raid is amazing. I really love it. I think it's great content. The rewards on it, not so great.
Yeah.
It should be a weekly lockout on like giga rewards. Like we're talking guaranteed at multiple ancestrals. You know what I mean? Multiple ancestral uniques. It should be really good.
Yeah.
But only once a week, but you're not locked out of it completely because you might want to help your friends get their rewards too, right?
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I felt like. Initially, I thought the raid would be like, like the Mythic Plus in World of Warcraft, where you got that big chest at the end of the week where you get all those rewards. And I thought the rewards will be just as good, right? The content maybe not so rewarding doing the raid itself, but doing at least like once per week will get you like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 ancestral GAs, blah blah blah, all those loots. And yeah, I got pretty let down when I got the reward. It didn't felt good. Like I would rather have them either buff the end of the week reward, so it's like comparable to like a World of Warcraft Mythic Plus chest, or them just buffing the raid rewards itself, so it's at least like a valid source of materials, or I don't know, GAs maybe as well.
I personally would not want. I would prefer to see the weekly reward buffed. I don't want to do the raid all the time or whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to farm the raid for any reason because it's like, I play hardcore.
Yeah. Okay.
That's like the bottom line.
Yeah, you don't like the wipe mechanics.
And if they put a core part of the game farming loop into the raid, it would alienate hardcore players like substantially.
Yeah, makes sense.
Combined with the one thing I do want to say about the raid, I love the raid, right? Gore Shack, right? I think that it shouldn't kill people the way it does. I think that there shouldn't be, if someone dies and then pending doom timer fills, it doesn't work that way on any other boss. and I think that more than one person should be able to take the portal or whatever. But if you all end up accidentally down there, obviously you're going to die. But the point that I'm trying to make is I think there should be room for a hardcore player to adapt to another player's mistake, and be given like a chance to react and like counterplay whatever just happened, so that you can help random people and they don't try to grief your character. Is like the bottom line. Like, why have a grief mechanic in the raid? That doesn't make, like, it could just be gone, and then what does it change? It doesn't change anything, right?
Yeah.
Hardcore in Dark Citadel is a fairly rough topic, I would say. They just need to buff the scroll of escape drop rate, and there you go. There's your counterplay mechanic against someone fucking up.
Yeah. Well, how much time do you have if two people take if like multiple people take the portal, or isn't it like instant or whatever if people die?
I don't know which mechanic you're talking about. So Gorshak is the first wing, second boss, right?
Yeah. If someone dies, the impending doom builds like immediately.
Oh, but I think that's normal. I think that's on every impending doom. I need to go and jump into softcore and try it out. Yeah, I think that's normal. I think that's normal that when someone dies during impending doom, everyone dies.
In some of the boss fights.
No, I'm fairly certain that is how it works.
What about the boss that just one-shots you straight up at the beginning of the fight if you don't go into the dome? How bad does it feel as hardcore?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you just stand still, right? I don't think that one's too bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know...
People will die to that, right?
I mean,
like,
if there was no review access... If there was no review access, then Woody, Oogie, and I had no chance. Like, that would have been
I will be honest with you. Yeah. I think that was a big mistake. They should not have given access to the raid and the review build. I think that they spoiled a big part of the fun by giving content creators and people that want to watch their content full access to exactly how to do the raid. There's no surprise. Everything's already been done before you even get to touch it.
I mean, if you don't want to get spoiled, you don't watch the videos, Penna.
No. Even if it's not being spoiled, it's people have already done the content. They already know exactly the mechanics. It's not about just going in blind, right? It's about, let's say, I don't. Yeah, it doesn't really matter that much, right? But the point that I would like to make is it would be more fun if it was blind for everybody. It would be a community discovery of the content.
Yes, I fully agree.
Yeah, I think it's wishful.
The raid race on World of Warcraft is probably the most popular content that it has throughout its like cycle, right? Yeah.
But only there is only one boss that is blind as well, and it's also only half blind. There's like literally two mechanics that are blind because you know it from heroic. So it's like, you know, we have to be honest. It's like not completely blind. Yeah, they know everything. They have tested everything on Mythic. It's just that the end boss. You don't know the Mythic mechanics, which is like 2 or 3 maybe, right? So
yeah, I don't actually know how the WoW works. I just know
it's not completely blind.
If people knew how to do everything before it even started,
they know how to do everything. If it's a 8 boss fight, they know how to do 7 of them on Mythic, and they know half of the other one that they don't know about. So it's like there's no blind. They can see with one eye on the last boss for sure. At the very least.
Yeah, that I mean, I don't play much WoW anymore, as you can tell.
Yeah, but just to see to kind of clarify how this works. But I am fully on your side. I'm not like I fully agree. A blind Dark Citadel on hardcore login, that would be amazing. That would be the best content I've ever like already like this. It was an amazing content. Like doing this, knowing everything was already incredible. Just it was a little bit crazy because Woody was just scrolling us through all the bosses, right? And it was okay. And I was just running around shouting like a little girl, trying to not get hit. And Woody was scrolling through all the bosses, but everything else was fine. I mean, I was playing Quill Volley, so I was doing some damage as well. But that was cool. I want more of that for sure.
Yeah. I finally got around to doing it on tier 4 as well, like last night or something. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did it on T1 before that to like get familiar with the mechanics. And I'm not gonna. I watched some videos. I'm not. I might have watched some content and seen like what some of the one shots were because hardcore, it's like it's tough or whatever. So I feel like they could have done it better with hardcore in mind in some aspects, but it's like whatever. If it's not the type of content that you have to do all the time, then it's not that big of a deal. If it's the type of content where you're at a substantial disadvantage if you don't do it, then that just further alienates hardcore players. People, it's already a small player base. It should be fun or whatever. It shouldn't just be all pain. I like some suffering though. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I fully agree. Okay, I guess that's all the topics that I wanted to covered. So go ahead, chats. Giga chats, get your questions ready, and we will see how everyone is going to. Oh, there we go. Okay, how do you feel about the power the expansion provides to classes and builds? So only the power that came with the expansion, from what I understand. Do you think this is what's best for the game, as now it sets a precedent going forward? Maybe someone has a feeling about that. I can go first. So I think runes turned out way better than I expected when we got to play with them in the PTR. Obviously with the Petrify Warcry meta, that was just awful. But I really like how they turned out to be. You have the 20% max life rune for the overpower builds. You have the jar rune for everything else when you want to speed farm. You have some builds maybe still using the Warcry because there is nothing else. I am a huge fan of the system in general, and I really like to always draw the kind of like the parallels to Helltide. Yeah, Helltide as a system in Season 0 was okay, probably, and it's now amazing, right? Even though we didn't play a lot during Season 6, I just hope that Rune Wards and all the other content that we have received, and also the power stuff that we receive for our characters, goes through the same evolution over the next year, just like Helltide did.
I mean, I delete all my Eternal tunes. Like, once the season's over, they're dead to me. The rune words were fantastic, in my opinion. I absolutely loved the fact that they nerfed Warcry and Petrify because it allowed people to see the value of other even classes builds, like to the extent of being able to invoke another class because it's the easier way to enable your other rune in your build. Like there's so many neat little tricks you can do with these rune words. Even changing them out for speed farming, like using the teleport rune on a necromancer who runs at 100% move speed. Like, it's cool. Like, there's a lot of neat build enabling stuff that you can do with them. It's stuff that wasn't thought a lot about on PTR simply because Warcry and Petrify were so good. So I really like the system. How it impacts Eternal, I know there's a lot of Eternal people out there, so I'm not even going to try to speak to that because my Eternal characters don't exist. So I do like the mechanic itself, and I think that, like you said, we've gone through some changes in the way the game is played and even mechanics that are still in the game. So I am excited to see where this goes. I was very apprehensive when they said they were bringing in Rune Word. Playing D2 till my fingers bled, and all my characters having an Enigma had me worried about the state of what the rune words would look like in D4. So I'm very pleased with the way it came out, and completely opposite of what I was expecting. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And as a sorcerer main, you guys do not deserve Enigma, okay? That's my teleport button. My entire class falls to shambles if everybody gets it easily. I think the way it turned out with Ja is like pretty fair. It's not too invading on the class's identity, because most people that like truly love sorcerer just really love teleport. But maybe that's not the case in all scenarios. The big thing with the runes is I think that there is a lot of fun combinations, but there's so many of them that feel underwhelming or just completely untouched. Even like the legendary lucky hit injured one, it's like that could be a blue one. It's like, what does the rarity have to do with it? It's still bad or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's some things that like I like have questions about with the runes, but overall it's really fun and has a lot of room for growth. So it's like, heck yeah.
Yeah, I did like the system as well, and I do love it. I like that how responsive they were with the initial feedback on Petrify and Warcry, as Sirach said. I also kind of like how they tried to like have like a better balance between blue runes and legendary ones when they giga buffed the Meteor, like most of the blue runes, right? Meteor moving from like 60% weapon damage to like over 380 or more than that. Like I feel like that helped runes feel good at any level of the game, whether we were just starting to get them to the end game. The main issue I see with runes is that I would love them to solve mechanic issues. So, for example, I would love runes to be able to sustain generatorless builds. However, the problem is most of the runes have like that 1 second internal cooldown that pretty much removes any idea about it. So it kind of confines rune to only being buffs, and that's it. So active damage runes, not used at all. Like resource restoration runes, not used at all because I don't care about generating 100% of my resource. If I only do it every 4 hit because there's a stupid ass 1 second cooldown on it, and I attack to just more than 1 time per second. So yeah, I would love to see just more. Yeah, like more runes helping more with like simple gameplay or mechanic, like being more of a solution to some of these.
Yeah.
And then just removing the internal cooldown entirely. It's stupid.
Yeah, it's things like it reliably applying vulnerable for builds that struggle for it, or like, yeah, I don't know. That would be one thing that would be really cool. But it feels like the current like vulnerable. I guess the wolves, right, can vuln kind of. It's like, and then you have the Frost Nova, but the Frost Nova is kind of heavy cost.
Yeah, we don't talk about the wolves because they killed one of my build because of that. Like I had a dream about doing a barbarian zoo build. Okay. And they removed entirely the rune that said
you take their wolves.
Yeah, but okay, so we had that rune that said whenever your minions or companions kill something or die, you gain offerings. And they just entirely removed it. And
Lum, or not Lum. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah, I felt terrible about it, but well, it is what it is.
It was your,
Yeah.
and then we have Lum. That's what it was. Because Northwar, I remember Northwar made the joke to me. I was talking
a conjuration build.
Lum, yeah, and his like his immediate response was, "I'm not about it unless it's your mom." Like it was like,
okay.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's okay. That works. I get the joke now.
Yeah, I wish we had more of these. Not like how do you say that? I wish we had more rune words that not only combine in the pack of 2, but in the pack of 4, where we have the trigger that is invoke a skill from another class, and then you can combine both of your rune words to make the ultimate rune word, right? A rune word. I think that's also a really cool thing. I wish we had more that just combines the 2 separate rune words into more combinations. I don't know how they can do that. They will hopefully figure it. Yeah, not more sockets. I mean, I think the socket situation is actually fine. Gems, I don't know, but socket situation I think is fine.
We could get like more extreme combinations to maybe create like weird cross. Then we're becoming PoE. That's like whoa.
Nah, I mean, I'm totally fine with having 2 rune words max, but just more that. Because currently we only have invoke skill from another class, and now you can combine the 2 separate rune words. I would like more options doing that, not having 2 separate rune words, but just being able to somehow throw them together in a clever way, right? That would be pretty cool, I think. Panda, how is your chat looking like?
We could use more ways to generate offerings somehow. I don't know what the answer is, but I do feel like the offering generation is slightly limited for some builds.
Yeah, even if you, okay, that makes sense. But the problem is you will probably never get rid of the internal cooldown of the spenders anyway. So I think that one,
true.
the offering generation is limited by the internal cooldown that basically all of those have, right? In any way, no matter how you buff it. Okay, do we have more questions maybe?
Oh, one thing I wanted to shout out to that I hear this question all the time, every day as a hardcore player. Our hardcore players are struggling with Scrolls of Escape. They are bad. It's really bad. They're supposed to be our DC protection. They just don't drop. They're lower drop rate than a mythic rate. I'm level Paragon 260. And I play more than that in shows because I do a lot of boss runs, right? And you don't get that good a Paragon there. But I've had 2 Scrolls of Escape the entire time I played the game. And I accidentally used both of them down. So it's like I've had 0 gameplay related to my Scrolls of Escape. And that's like skill issue, right? However, having only 2 drop in that entire amount of time is ridiculous because it's a scenario where the Scroll of Escape is more valuable than your character's life. You would be able to create a new character, re-level it, re-gear it, get back to the exact same gear state you were at before you're likely to find another Scroll of Escape. Like,
yeah,
come on.
Every hardcore player agrees. I think I like it a lot when you have to think about, oh, do I want to risk X activity now because I have like maybe 5 scrolls only or 10 or so. I think 10 is already pushing it, but I like the fact that you have to think about, do I want to do it or not? If you only find one scroll every 2 weeks, that's not okay. That's not thinking about, can I do this? Can I not do this? You just don't do it, or you do it and you either succeed by not getting hit or you just straight up die, right?
Yeah, no, it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I assume it's a bug, but there's no like public comment that they made on it. The point that I'm trying to make is, hey, if you're a hardcore player, go baby rage on the forums for me, please.
That's okay. We reported that issue. They will definitely look into it for sure. Okay, guys. So then, if we don't have any other question, I wanted to say thank you a lot to Panda, Serok, and especially Beat, who got in here last second for Maxroll and helped us out to be a team of 4. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And yeah, any last words? Else we're just gonna say goodbye to chat and also YouTube.
No, good. Thanks a lot for having me. I know I'm not as good looking as Maxroll, but at least I brought my glasses. So there's that.
That's great. Okay. Thank you so much, guys. GG's.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thanks a lot, guys. See ya.
Bye-bye.